Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen.
I understand from your VD that you are the chairman of the University of Hawaii at Manoa's Institute for Astronomy. Is that correct?
Director, yes.
Yes. And can you tell me what the role IFA plays in the management of Mauna Kea telescopes?
Yes, so...
A little slower?
Sorry?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure what role.
Oh, can you tell me what role the Institute for Astronomy plays in the management of Mauna Kea?
Yeah, as I said, we do not have, right now, we do not have a direct responsibility for the management of the mountain. This is done by UH-Hilo, but we have the responsibility to do the long-term planning, the astronomical visioning, and we are the contact partners to the observatories on the mountain with respect to what happens inside the domes. So you can roughly say University of Hawaii Hilo is responsible for the land, and IFA is dealing with everything that happens inside the domes.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell me how that differs from the role, well, you have told us a little bit about how it differs from the role of the University of Hawaii with regard to management of the Science Reserve?
That was related to the Science Reserve.
Okay. So is the UH Manoa's Institute for Astronomy the applicant on the Conservation District use application?
No, the University of Hawaii is the applicant.
Okay. University of Hawaii is. Uh-huh. And is it the University of Hawaii at Manoa where you work?
No.
Objection to the on-scope of the record.
Are you going someplace with this?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let the answer stand,
Okay.
but go ahead.
So what is the role of the IFA in operations and management of the TMT telescope project, if it's not the applicant?
IFA doesn't have a direct role in the management of the mountain, as I said. We are participating in the long-term planning and in the visioning, and we also participate in the scientific exploitation of the telescope, so utilization.
Okay. Dr. Hasinger, have you been provided a list of you have provided a list in your testimony of the natural characteristics that make Mauna Kea one of the best viewing locations?
Yes.
And those include low humidity, low light pollution, stable atmosphere, and location at a favorable latitude. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know if these are the natural resources that are defined in the law that require protection in the Conservation District?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you agree that the subject of this contested case hearing is the Conservation District use application?
Yes.
Okay.
Overruled. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Have you read the EIS and the Conservation District use application for the TMT project?
Not in its entirety.
Are you familiar with the analysis of cumulative impact in the environmental impact statement conducted?
Objection beyond the scope of the record.
Is this leading someplace?
Yes, it is.
All right, so I'll ask Dr. Hasinger to answer, please.
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay. Is it your understanding that the document that the TMT Corporation procured from Parsons Brinkerhoff is a valid environmental impact statement?
Do not answer.
Objection argumentative.
Max Foundation. All right, so you have not established that this witness is qualified to answer that question
Okay,
based on his personal knowledge.
I'm trying to find out where in the development of the TMT the role of Institute for Astronomy is active. And so I'm trying to find out, I'm trying to unpack where the IFA fits into all of this. So if the Institute for Astronomy is not part of the application or part of the EIS, I'm trying to figure out where the Institute for Astronomy has fit in. So I've just skipped a page and a half of questions.
It's okay, you ask whatever you need to,
Okay.
but my point is, you can ask him that question directly,
Okay,
because he's qualified to answer that.
okay. where does the where does the Institute for Astronomy fit into the development of the plans for the Mauna Kea, sorry, for the 30-meter telescope project?
We are fitting in as far as it concerns long-term visioning and strategic planning. So our institute, not me personally, was involved in the early discussions about the future of Mauna Kea, and we are still involved in the discussions about the future of Mauna Kea, but only with respect to astronomical visioning and planning.
Dr. Hasinger, I wonder if you could move the microphone
Yes,
closer to
mhm.
you, because
Yes.
I want everyone to be able to hear your testimony as well as myself.
Thank you.
You stated on page 2 of your testimony that the 30-meter telescope would play a role in the quest to discover Earth 2. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you state that if this Earth-like planet might be several light years away, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do the
Is that-
rules?
Excuse me.
Sorry, yes.
He didn't give a response.
Oh, I'm
A
sorry.
sound is not a response.
Okay. We're all learning.
Well, I'm sure you want to have
Yes, I
the
do.
word
I do want it on
written
the
down.
record.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the rules of the Conservation District?
I'm loosely familiar with them.
Okay. Do you know whether the rules of the Conservation District consider the future planetary discoveries?
In a sense, they do.
How would that be?
Where all the elements that I was discussing about the public health and the public knowledge that is in principle in criteria number 8.
I see. So as far as you're concerned, the development of astronomy relates to public health and welfare?
Yes.
I see. Can you tell me whether finding an Earth-like planet is a criterion for construction of an 18-story building in the Conservation District?
Objection, lack of foundation, argumentative.
Can you lay some foundation, please? Why is this witness qualified to answer that question?
Well, he says that finding an Earth-like planet is part of developing and improving the health and welfare of the people of Hawaii.
And so your question to him is?
Right, well, I'm going to deviate from my set of questions, and I'm going to ask a little bit more. How exactly would knowing that there is an Earth-like planet that is several light years away improving the health and welfare of the people of Hawaii?
As I said in my summary, the study of extrasolar planets helps us understand how our own solar system develops and what we can or need to do in order to, for instance, keep it that way. So physics that is derived from astronomy has been the foundation, as you may well know, for global warming physics. And if we study other planetary systems, we can actually see what happens elsewhere. And if we find a habitable planet, or maybe even a planet with life on it, that is a huge input in our knowledge what we can do with Earth itself.
You say that the possibility of the developments on Mauna Kea, particularly with the 30-meter telescope, would be could possibly enable future generations to fly away to another planet.
Yes.
Do you feel confident that, I know I'm going to get flashback on this, but do you feel confident that human beings know enough about protection of planets to make that a successful endeavor?
Sorry.
Objection, argumentative, call for speculation.
Overruled. Please answer the question.
I think flying to another planet is a dream which is probably taking several hundred to 1,000 years. By that time, we will probably need to send stuff there. We need to send cameras there to look and so on. We will not enter the sphere of this other planet to be able to learn about it. And I would very much hope that in 1,000 years from now, we have actually had a chance to solve our own problems on Earth, because otherwise it's too late.
Other than agreeing with you about it may be too late, I will continue. You state on your page 4 of your testimony that the 30-meter telescope might contribute to public welfare by studying asteroids. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Are there any other telescopes in the world studying the orbits and trajectories? Oh, are there any other telescopes or observatories in the world studying the orbits and trajectories of asteroids?
Yes, many.
Would the TMT itself be able to stop or alter the course of an asteroid?
Yes, there are actually scenarios, realistic scenarios that have been trained and played by the community, driven by NASA. Last year there was a workshop over 3 weeks where a realistic threat was simulated. And what happens, we first need to discover the asteroid, for instance, on telescopes on Haleakala with pan-stars and so on. And then we only get a relatively rough orbit. And if we find something that is really posing a danger to Earth, then we have to observe it more and more accurate. And in the end, telescopes like the TMT will actually decide, will have the exact measurement power to decide whether that asteroid hits the Earth or not, and even where it would hit the Earth. And this has to be done many, many years in advance, maybe 30, 40 years in advance, so that you can actually still do something about it. You could fly there, and you could try to push the asteroid away. So telescopes like the TMT are a crucial element in saving the Earth in that way.
Well, thank you for that. Can you tell me whether there are other telescopes being constructed now or already that are already functioning that may be able to provide that same information?
So there is one telescope being constructed or starting to be constructed in Chile, the European Extremely Large Telescope. Mm-hmm. There's another telescope planned for Chile, the GMT, the Giant Magellan Telescope. They have diameters between 25 and 39 meters, and the diameter is actually the one that is sensitive. I mean, that is the most important, because that defines how accurate you can localize these objects. And the point is that these are on the southern hemisphere, and TMT is supposed to be built on the northern hemisphere. So if the asteroid comes from the north, the southern telescope cannot see it, and vice versa, we cannot see the asteroids that are coming from the south.
Are there other high elevation locations, geographic locations in the world in the northern hemisphere that could adequately house the 30-meter telescope?
In order to answer that question, I may need to elaborate a little bit about why Mauna Kea is so special. Because my answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
But if it's fine with you, the answer is no.
Okay. Have the technologies that you mentioned generated as a result of the work on Mauna Kea been patented?
There are some patents that are developed from work that is arrived on Mauna Kea.
Have any of those patents been generated by people at the University of Hawaii?
There is two patents that are generated by one of our faculty members.
Have those patents generated any funds for the university?
No, not yet, but they in principle can.
In principle, then, would those funds generated be shared with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs to benefit the right holders of Mauna Kea lands that have been ceded to the state in trust?
Objection, lack of foundation.
I'll ask the question a little
You may answer
simpler.
that if you know the answer. If you don't know, you don't know.
I may need to correct myself. I mean, this is not based on work done on Mauna Kea. It's based on work done in our institute.
I see. Would
Dr. Hasinger, do you mind moving the microphone closer? I'm
Yes.
having-
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
So let me rephrase that question. Have any funds generated or that will be generated by patents generated by university faculty? Is there a mechanism for sharing those funds with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs?
I don't know.
Okay. On page 3 of your testimony, you cite economic benefits of astronomy. And you quote from Exhibit 33, which is UH Hero report from 2014. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
On page 4 of your testimony, you state that the astronomy provides close to 1,000 jobs in STEM fields. Is that correct?
Yes.
And can you tell us how many of those technical and administrative positions of the 50% of local people that are currently that are currently employed, you've mentioned that in your testimony, how many of those people are working on Mauna Kea?
Usually the telescopes are employing people that are not all working on Mauna Kea. They work in the base facilities, and then some of them go up to the mountain. So only a small fraction actually works up on the mountain, and the rest works in sea level facilities.
I see. Is working on the mountain somewhat hazardous?
Yes, you have to have special health permits to work on the mountain.
Are the people that work on the mountain required to assist with people who are injured or having health problems, such as heart attacks?
We have a number of rangers that are working on the mountain specifically for this purpose.
Are the telescope operators who work in the telescopes, such as the Subaru or the JCMT, are they required to be available to assist people who are having health issues?
I don't know.
This relates to public health and welfare. Can you tell me what the salary range is for the people who work in these positions?
Honestly, I don't know.
Can you tell me if the Institute for Astronomy is liable or responsible for any safety violations or safety issues that arise?
Lack of foundation.
Sustained.
Dr. Hasinger
You're asking him if the universities or the IMF is liable?
Well, I'm trying to say, is the Institute for Astronomy responsible in any way for ascertaining and maintaining safety provisions?
We have some relation because the Institute for Astronomy is actually the body that is organizing the Mauna Kea support services. Mauna Kea support services are responsible for mid-level facility, for grading the road and other things, so we also have some responsibility for safety. Because
you elaborated to some extent in your written direct testimony about the economic benefits of astronomy, and you don't know the pay range, at least that's what you've said, of the people who work in the facility, are you aware that some telescope operators are needing taxpayer funds to cover food stamps and Quest because they are not paid very well?
No.
Strike the answer, sustained. And there's no foundation for that question.
I know. You know, we have such short notice.
Mr. Kayama, she represents herself. She certainly can explain.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
As a person who lives on this island, I am well acquainted with several people who work at the telescope facility.
And are you going to testify at some point about your knowledge?
You know, Dr. Hasinger was slipped in, and I do have some knowledge of this, and with a day's notice, I was not able to get the documentation that I can get, but I'm asking whether he's aware of the salary range.
Dr. Hasinger was scheduled to testify this week from last week.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know,
there was a significant amount of time to prepare.
Judge Amano, I'm sure you're well aware of how few hours of sleep we're getting right now, trying to get ready for cross.
And I'm there.
I understand. We're all in the same boat, but some of these pieces of information come to us at 2 in the morning.
I get that, and same here. But the point being that for you to testify, that becomes evidence, but your question is not evidence, so.
I'm just trying to find out how much, since Dr. Hasinger is reporting, Dr. Hasinger is a physicist. He's reporting economic benefits and saying that this is public health and welfare. I'm trying to ascertain whether this is indeed public health and welfare, or whether it's a drain on the taxpayer. And I don't know how to ask the question other than ask what the salary range is. And if he doesn't know it, I can understand that he doesn't know it. I'm trying to find out how much he does know.
I understand what you said. But putting your knowledge to him doesn't mean he has to accept that, and it's not his knowledge.
I'm just asking if he knows.
So repeat the question,
Okay.
and I'm going to ask that you lay the foundation, which you've done well this morning.
Okay,
And I think you understand the concept that
I do,
we
yeah.
have to be fair to our all witnesses, yourself when you testify as well.
Right. Maybe I could ask it this way. Do you know if any of the telescope operators currently working in telescopes on Mauna Kea are receiving taxpayer benefits due to their low salaries?
I don't know.
Okay,
It's completely
thank you.
news to me.
I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ward.